I guarantee that no matter what, if this video is shared, it's gonna piss someone off. It doesn't matter. It's just gonna happen. Now, this diagram was originally sparked by this one scene in What Is a Woman, where the interviewer, he's out on the street and he's asking people, what is a woman? And some people, let's say this is him here, and he's going to other people, and this is him in his reality, his understanding of reality, and he's going to talk to other people, and he's interviewing them, and they're like, well, if you say that I don't exist, then that's true for you, and that's true in your reality. And he's like, yeah, but there's a higher truth here that we're both standing here talking about, right? Like, this is essentially um what he's trying to point out and understand is, he's like, well, how can you say that I don't exist if I don't, or you don't exist if I say that you don't, when we're also here in this shared reality that is a reality that we're both sharing. And it's this illusion of separateness where it's like, this is isolated from this, and this is isolated from this, and your truth is your truth, and her truth is her truth, and his truth is whatever, right? Their truth is their truth, and they're all separate, and they're all individual, and they're all isolated from each other. But this idea breaks down when we expand to a higher level, and we're starting to see that now, which is what Brittany spoke of, which was this, like, you have biological males competing in women's sports and just dominating them and being awarded for their biological merits, even though they're not really on the same playing field, because it's just a biological fact about how men and women, or male and female bodies, are built differently. And I heard something yesterday, and I actually don't even remember. It's weird. I feel like I heard it on the radio, and I've never listened to the radio, which means that maybe I heard it when I was walking into the mall to go to my post box and just check the mail or something. I feel like I heard it around that point, but it was that there was some announcement about how biological male hits puberty, then they're not allowed to compete in women's sports. But it's like the puberty is the point. So then, of course, there's probably, this is going to be affecting children who want to transition early, or are convinced that that's what they need to do at a young age. Maybe they'll cancel their they're getting puberty blockers and stuff like that, which was explored in the What Is a Woman movie as something that's not exactly, it just has some health detriments to the body, according to the research presented in this movie. And I don't claim to be an expert, because I know that there's probably people on both sides of the equation of that side. The whole thing, though, is that even this, like, let's say that, this is people who are pro-trans and pro-men competing in women's sports, and then this is another pro-trans, but they're against that kind of community, and then there's this another reality over here of people who are just like, this is all bullshit. There's only two genders. You can't actually change your gender, and this is nonsense. Like, this is a reality, and this is a reality, and this is a reality that people are experiencing collectively in groups. But there's still a higher truth, or a shared total reality, which Drunvalo calls the one reality, that is supersedes all of it. That if you can get to a high enough level of consciousness, you can start to perceive the intrinsic unity between all of the things. Now, when you're coming from that place, this is where it starts to get very interesting. And the issue of, like, well, let's say I'm speaking to this right now, and that's going to offend this person down here who is perceiving themselves as separate, and that their truth is the ultimate truth. And this is maybe one of the biggest issues or challenges that seems to be taking place across the board. This isn't just exclusive to the LGBT argument, though it was depicted really well in the movie, because the interviewer, Matt Walsh, at one point goes and talks to a university college professor or something like that, and they're a professor of LGBT studies and gender studies or something like that, and he's like, I'm just trying to understand truth. Like, I want to understand what is a woman. And he's like, well, you're using this word truth as if it's, an attack. And I didn't quite perceive it that way, because he didn't seem like he was trying to tell them that they were wrong. He was just after this up here. But from this perspective of individual understanding, there's it's like, well, anything that's outside of that must be an attack. And this is where the challenge I find really is like, you're talking about how careful you have to be when you choose your words. And I feel like if you're speaking from the heart, you shouldn't have to. And that's the big challenge, is like, there's so much hesitancy and nervousness around how to speak to this issue because everybody's so sensitive that it leads us to making, like maybe lesser or weaker decisions consciously because we're trying to appease other people in their illusion of separateness. And that doesn't mean that that what is a woman, and a woman is a biological adult female, period, and that everyone else who disagrees with that is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But that we as a collective need to learn how to, like, just be able to receive with, in the self, capital S self, without being so attached to how the personality looks and to how something might be perceived when it wasn't actually intended that way. And that's why I pulled up these charts as well, because, well, one, Hayden, you were talking about, pride parades and such, and I was just thinking, like, pride as the 7 deadly sin pride, there's a few different versions of pride and understandings of pride, but that I think there is a survivalist, like, root chakra. Someone, it might have even been Amelia in the chat, someone said that there's this, like, these people, trans people and so on, haven't really had a representation in the world and has been marginalized and minimalized for so many years that it's now got to the point where they want to survive, and it's grown enough that it's exploding, through the sacral, that, like, extremely sexual thing, and into the solar plexus, this very strong willpower, like, to the point at which, even Disney, a lot of the workers at Disney have, especially at the very top, have come out as having, like, a gay agenda and, like, deliberately putting gay stuff in big Disney movies or LGBT stuff in Disney movies, just to try and, like, seed it into the collective consciousness so that they can feel okay. And I think that this is part of our collective journey of, like, once survival has been attained and there's a harmonization between the lower chakras, then we can collectively start to move past it into the heart and through courage and into actual, like, a higher divine understanding. And that will come in the form of, I think, just like tolerance, acknowledgement, love, and that universal unconditional Christ heart love, rather than a placation, trying to make people feel okay for being where they are at. It would be ideal for us to collectively be at a place where we can be whoever we want to be, however we want to be, show up in the world in the way that we're called to, and not be crucified for it, but then also not have to shove it down everybody else's throats. Not saying that's what's happening across the board, but that's where, there is fighting in that sense. Like, the front lines of the battle it's the same as the Christian dogma of proselytizing, just giving it, mercilessly trying to convert people to this new way of thinking. And the new way of thinking will come when these are transcended solely and we can approach a higher understanding together. And we move past this. Because I think even, like, a lot of that pride, it comes from the fear of not being seen and not being allowed to be in society in so many ways, right? And then there's also shame that people feel because they've been told that how they feel is wrong. And so all of those are learning to move up together, and eventually we're going to have a tipping point where that heart will actually be able to fully shine.